descended from fountain pens, the classical technique. The classical technical pens, some with an ink reservoir inside them, eliminating the need for dipping ink. Like fine brushes and nib pens, such pens are a core to clean and maintain. But the technical pen's virtues are not particularly subtle, so a greater number of artists have been willing to switch to fixed with markers with supposedly permanent inks and save themselves the hassle. Speaking of inks, you may want to experiment. Certain tools work best with certain inks. Thinner inks are less likely to clog your brush or pen, but denser ink can deliver a more satisfyingly dark line. Try mixing to find a balance you like. For solid black lines, these are the three most common kinds of tools: brush, nib pen, and technical pen. Also useful opaque white paint for correction. Apart from the occasional dry brush or tonal effect, most 20th century comics were built around solid black lines produced by tools like these. Even when those lines were filled with the colors of mechanical reproductions, and it's that same sensibility that informs many artists' style even today. Generally speaking, brush work tends to nudge one's artwork in a more flowing, rhythmic, and sometimes slick directions. Nib pen work can be quite smooth but more often tends towards a dry, slightly edgy, brittle look. Fixed with pen art, whether through technical pens or markers, tends to be a bit schematic and cool, though when used to represent a tone through stippling and cross hatching, it can warm up a lot. Many popular comics over the years have used all three flaming of the tools, playing to each one's strengths, with brush handling most outlines, nib pen hitting many of the details, and some technical pens on borders, word balloons, or additional details works. The traditional methods for lettering was to make a series of light guidelines and hand lettering in all caps within them. A T square was used to keep the guidelines parallel, and a little template called an arms guide slide back and form as a pencil was placed in succession of holes to produce as many guidelines as needed. The idea was that each row of letters needed to be the same height, while the space between those lines could be a bit narrower. Many cartoonists today use a font or just letter freehand, but you can still find loyal users of the IM's guide system, and their work can be both consistent and attractive. A fully stocked setup like this can cost hundreds of dollars, but if you want to go the traditional route, it could be worth it. Artists have been mastering these tools for centuries, and there is a rich traditions to draw from. A good piece of original art can be an object of triangle beauty and lasting value, and there is nothing quite like the right pen or brush gliding across a newly cut piece of Bristol board. As for me, I haven't used one in over 10 years. The book was drawn and lettered digitally. I sketched the layouts here on my old drawing desk, but that's it. All of this finished art was done on that Mac over there. Now my layouts are pretty tight and include the full script, so a lot of real work is done here at the drafting table. But then those layouts are scanned in and used as a guide for lettering. each page in Adobe Illustrator and objects-oriented drawing program. One export the lettering to Photoshop as a solid white grid with a panel sponged out to form windows for the art of the show through. Then with the lettering on top and my sketched layouts on the bottom, I create 5 to 50 layers of finished art between them, all in Photoshop at 1200 dots per inch, and all drawn with a stylus directly on the screen of an 18 tablet monitor. After corrections, each page is then flattened to a single black white bitmap plus a grayscale page if needed. All in all, a radically different working method from my pen and brush days, but because the end result is a printed book filled with line art, many of the basic principles of drawing this way are the same. One of the basic goals of line art is to make all the details of a scene clear at a glance without overwhelming the eye. Whatever tools you use, a good way to achieve that clarity is to draw thicker lines around the edges of your subjects, and to finer lines for interior details and for overlapped of more distant subjects. It's a simple technique, but one which can transform an unintelligible jumble of lines into a scene with a form and depth. Pen and brush artists get that effect by switching from one tools to another, or by using a single tool's ability to vary line thickness. Digital artists going for the same effect can switch between pens, brushes, and other virtual tools with a specific variation and line characters built in using various drawing and painting programs. When drawing a close-up like this, for example, I used a 28 pixels variable with the brush in Photoshop, while for distant figures like this I switched to a 14 pixel width. I used a thin fixed width line tools for the checks and more narrowly variable pen like 6 pixels brush for some details. The tool in my drawing hand never changed, but my other hand switched from tool to tools with a series of pre-programmed function keys. Most of what you see here is drawn freehand, nothing fancy, but doing it digitally has helped me a lot. No matter how small a given detail is, more example, I can always feel the screen with it increasing precision without leading to hand strain. Also, creating pattern based stamps and brushes can speed up some of traditional drawings more tedious and repetitive tasks. And resizing and repositioning of different elements on dozens of separate layers has allowed me to fine tune my art like crazy. If you want to digitally create line art for print, these are a few of your options. If you want to create tonal or color artworks especially for the screen, as with web comics, you will have about 1,000 or more. From an art creation standpoint, the most basic difference between page and screen is that the represents tone through lines and dots, while the other can display a full range of tones in each pixels. And for webcomics artists, there is no extra expansion to use a full range of colors other than bigger file size. The web the web has become a massive laboratory for new techniques thanks to the thousands of cartoonists making webcomics every day in dozens of genres. The color filled all black fine features line work or traditional printed comics books and can still be seen in place, but joining it are colored outlines, bolder streamlined line work, near borderless color shapes, all out 3D, and even deliberately pixel out contours. Web cartoonists have also tinkered with values not often found in printed comics, such as blurred or borderless backgrounds, fading contours, or atmospheric effect. Artists used to working with traditional media have experimented with scanning strength from pencil to color or using any number of color tools, while native digital artists have pushed the limits of vector stylization and other forms of digital art. The change from print to screen has also raised fundamental questions about how comics are read. This is where webcomics run into some of the navigational issues I talked about in reinventing comics, and which I can probably better desire online. So far more ideas on this and other topics related to the technology, go to the sub Scott McLeod in dot 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 blah blah blah. You can see, as you can see here, you can go there. Now I'm moving further. On a more practical note, lettering your comics digitally, usually object oriented programs like Adobe Illustrator, can save time and work while ensuring a consistent appearance and spacing for your captions and word balloons. Unfortunately, it can also open a Pandora's box of new bad lettering opportunities. First, there is a tradition among cartoonists to use sans serif fonts for balloons lettering. This might just be a little habit inherited from efficiency minded hand letters, but it might also be because simpler strokes in lettering more closer resemble the line work of the drawing that surrounded them. It's harder to imagine letter like these drawn by the same hand that drew the hand below, for example. Many cartoonists, including you, are only yours truly. Sorry, many cartoonists, including yours truly, have had fonts made of their own handwriting for this reason. Hand drawn fonts also ensure that the occasional hand letter effect won't look too out of place. Some cartoonists choose their font from various comic style font packages available online. As for balloons, there are plenty of styles and shapes to choose from. Once again, there is no right way to do it, but I do have a couple of general suggestions. First, always give a little white space between your words and the balloons borders to let balloons and art breathe a bit. Also, if you are going for the classic oval balloon shapes, make sure the words fill the space comfortably, and try squeezing the oval a bit on all four sides to square it. This is a big subject, of course. Check this chapter's notes page for pointers to online tutorial and other resources. Unsqueezed overalls like this leave a lot of wasted spaces on either, and especially when combined with a rectangular text box like this one. The line between traditional and digital methods is not always clear. Today, plenty of web comics feature ink and paper drawings, while plenty of printed comics and drawn digitally. But when it comes to getting started in comics, one difference between digital and analog still looms large: price. Getting a full suit of hardware and software can cost thousands, but depending on what you want out of it, you might get away with spending a lot less. For example, if all you need to do is scan and upload some hand-drawn comics strips to a friend's website, and 8 years old used laptop and cheap scanner might be all you need. Still, if you want to create more ambitious original digital art either for print or the web, you might need to spend a bit more. Computers that play nice with graphics programs and tend to have a extra memory installed and run fast. Those of us who prefer Macs are common among graphic artists are especially vulnerable, since these babies are not cheap. You will want a big sharp monitor if you really plan to stare at it all day. or judge your colors by it. Hardly any of us drawn with a mouse, but instead of use some form graphics tablet, a tablet monitor that allows you to draw directly on the screen is especially good, but they are also especially expensive. See the chapter in the notes for the more information. Getting the premier painting, drawing, and web authoring programs can add a lot of your shopping list. Bottom line, add in a decent desk and chair, web access, various peripherals, a printer, ink scanner, and backup drive, or DVD burner, and you can imagine how it adds up. That said, you may already have a computer in the mouse, and there are low cost of software alternatives out there. Also, publishing your work online can be a lot cheaper than traditional printing and distributing. And the changes of technology closing the price gap in the near future with affordable all-in-one wireless gadgets looks more likely than ever. For now, though, these are the two alternatives most comics artists choose from, with strong advocates for each, and a growing number of artists comfortable with both. One of them boasts tools and techniques that have been mastered and refined for centuries. One is changing and growing by the day. For artists working in print comics, the subject of tools and techniques usually ends when the finished artwork is sent off to the publisher. In the small press and mini comic scenes, publishing a bit more hands on, but for most ink and paper cartoonists, printing is someone else's job. Not true on the web, where self publishing is not just practical, it's the norm. Creating web pages has gotten easier in recent years thanks to various of the self program, and there are any number of the helpful guides to web publishing, but the basic challenges of putting comics on web, isn't it really a technical one? Tell your story clearly and effectively, design your sites with the reading experience in mind, and everything else is just connecting the dots. I have written a lot about the transitions from analog to digital in comics. It's a profound change that's already turning a lot of our traditional assumptions upside down, and it's just getting started. To describe computers as just another tools is a bit like describing the first printing press as a really fast scribe, but as radical as these new effects, format, designs, principles, and distributes models are. The art of putting one pictures after another to tell a story is still the name of the game. Master that, and every one of your tools will line up to do your bidding instead of the other way around. Thank you. Bye. See you in the next video. We're gonna start a new chapter in the next video. So till then, bye. Thank you.